The last video series that I did, that guitar was completed and is now belongs to a good friend of mine in Phoenix, Arizona. So this series is going to be on a new guitar build. Several, I don't know, 5-6 weeks ago, I was on the LMI website and I went to their Legacy Wood section, and they had, I wound up buying a back and side set of curly maple. That's absolutely beautiful. So that's going to be my next project. And my intentions were to make my own rosette. And I videoed all the steps as I was trying to make it, and I just screwed it up terrible. So I'm not going to include those videos. But what I did is I had a rosette that I had bought several years ago that I never used. So it's a solid wood. It's real dark, and it's going to match the binding. So it's going to turn out, it's going to be, it'll look good, but there won't be any video of the rosette. So just giving you a heads up. And now we're going to get started on building the curly maple Dreadnought guitar. Well, this is not what I envisioned, but hey, you know, sometimes you just gotta make do with what you've got. If something doesn't work, then you improvise, you find a way to make it work. So I'm not disappointed in that, not at all. I think it looks pretty good. Now that the rosette has been installed and has been cut to shape, it's now time to start the bracing. You can see I've laid out my patterns here where all the braces will go. And I've cut, we're gonna start with the X brace, and I've started with some quarter sawn spruce. I've traced out using this template, and I'm gonna cut that on the bandsaw and then cut the lap joint for the X brace. I've cut the X braces and I took them to my spindle sander and sanded them down to match the profile that I want. Then I clamped one brace and I've clamped it to the markings. Then I've taken this one, and you can't see it, but it's sitting right on the line right there. And over here, I will line it up over the line there and over where the crisscross, the four-way stop is right there. And then I will come in and draw my pencil lines and then cut it. I've marked where the X brace will come across this one, and I'm going to use this little back saw. I've also measured right here, which is half the depth of this brace. That way you cut half on this one, cut half the depth on the other one, and then they'll sit flush with each other. So time to start cutting. I've marked both sides to make sure I don't cut too deep. And now I need to remove that little notch that I've cut. So I'll take a small chisel and I'll score right there on that line on both sides. Pop it right out. Oh, it's perfect. It's nice and tight. Yes, indeed. Perfect. This is a 30-foot radius sanding dish, and that is the radius at the top of the guitar will be when completed. So the braces that I cut for the X brace are flat. Sometimes I've taken and sanded them individually before I cut the lap joint, but this time I'm going to do it as they're assembled. And you can see that you know, they touch down here, but they do not touch the sanding dish in the middle. So I'm going to sand this, get them to this radius, and then we'll glue it down to the top. Now that the X brace is glued in place, the next step I'm going to do is the finger braces. So I've cut these to length. I've cut the angle so they will fit nice and tight against the lower X brace on both of these. Next step is I'm going to take them to the sanding dish, put the radius on them, then use my template to draw the outline, and then cut it to that, then glue it in place. So I want to talk for just a minute about the bracing and why I do it the way I do. I've seen some videos where some luthiers say that you should take your stock after you've cut it to the width and then glue it onto the soundboard like so. And then after the glue is dried, come back with a sharp chisel and carve your scallops and the peaks. And I'm sure that if you're a really skilled guitar builder, that might be the right route to take. I, on the other hand, I've tried that, and I didn't have any major disasters, but I just have found that if you take a template, for me it works better to take a template and trace everything out, and then cut it, and use my sander, and sand this to the dimensions that I use, and then glue it down. A sharp chisel is a luthier's best friend, but when you glue this to the soundboard and you take that chisel and you start scalloping, and again, this has not happened to me, but I just could see where that sharp chisel could get away. I mean, what if you carve it too deep? You know, you can't add back to it. And in a worst case scenario, you would have to remove this, sand it down, and start all over again. So I just think it's quicker and easier and more accurate to cut and sand to your final dimensions and then glue it down. And I've heard some people say that it's hard to glue these once they've been cut. And I've not found that to be the case at all. You use your Go Bar deck and those fiberglass bars and place them up and down here, and you get plenty of good pressure. Now, this is a soft wood, and sometimes it does leave little bitty dimples in the top right here from that downward pressure, but you're going to come back with a chisel and put a peak on that, so you're going to get rid of those little dings anyway. So that's my thoughts. That's the reason I cut and shaped them prior to gluing them down. So on the back there, I put a little patch, and that is just a tiny little square to help reinforce that glue joint right there. The next thing to do is to glue on the upper transverse brace, and I've carved out the scallops on it already. I've drilled a hole where the truss rod will, or the Allen wrench will be able to get through to reach the truss rod. And there's a patch that goes across here, and the sound hole reinforcement braces are all glued up flat. So I don't have the dish. I've got the dish turned upside down. Everything above the sound hole is glued flat. The arch is from here, this lower 2/3 of the guitar. So I'm gonna use the Go Bar deck, and I'm gonna glue this up on a flat plane. One thing that I really love about this new Laguna bandsaw is the ability to resaw. This is not a real big piece of wood. It's real soft. It's Sitka spruce, but I need to cut it about 4 millimeters thick, and then sand it down to 3 millimeters. But with this tall fence and this resaw blade, this is the perfect tool to do that. So there's one last brace that goes up here next to the upper transverse. And I don't know what it's called. I've heard it referred to as the tongue depressor because it's very thin. And you've got this little concave carved in it. And that's, again, the neck's gonna fit up right here. And when you come in through the back to this way with an Allen wrench, you need some relief here so that Allen wrench can get to it. And in the past, I've always glued this and then taken a rat tail file and carved that little groove there. And man, that is not easy to do. It's a pain in the ass, and you wind up scarring this up with that file. So this time I've tried something different. I took a little sanding drum and chucked it up in my drill press, and then I sanded it this way. So that took the stress out of it, and it carved a nice, smooth, little concaved area for the Allen wrench. I'll glue this up, and then the only thing left at that point will be to put the sound hole bracings. On the sound hole braces, I've cut the angle for each one. Here's the last one. And on each one of these, I rolled over the edge. If I can focus on it. Anyway, I rolled over this edge right here, the edge that faces the sound hole. And then I sanded everything down real nice and smooth. So I'll glue this one up, and then that is all of the braces, and we'll start the carving the braces next. Yesterday I incorrectly stated that the all of the braces were that I was completed with the top, but I actually left off one of the most important patches that there is, and that is the bridge plate brace, and it's a piece of rosewood that's going to sit right there directly under the bridge like such. And then when your bridge is glued on the other side and you drill your pinholes, this provides the strength that it needs to help reinforce that bridge. As soft as this wood is, you put that much tension on a string and it's going to eventually plow right through here. So I'm going to cut me this piece of rosewood to match that, and then glue it in right here, and then the soundboard will be fully braced.